Hi, welcome to the wood shop here at Glenwood Springs High School. I'm Matt Jensen, and this video series is on the functions, features, and safe operation of our equipment here in the shop. Okay, in this video we're going to look at the chop saw and how the chop saw works. First thing that we want to notice is that we've got the plate, we've got this miter gauge, we'll get to that in a few minutes. We've got the handle up top. We've got the blade guard that's going to move up and down as we come, when we pull it down. This is a 12-inch chop saw, a 12-inch miter saw. You'll hear them interchangeably. We've got our vacuum system up here. On the back, I know it's hard to see from the video camera, but on the back we've got a sawdust port right through here. We should get a hose to go up into our vacuum system. Where that is, I'm not sure at the moment. But this is a compound miter saw. We can take this saw and we can rotate it so the wood stays flat here, right? The wood stays flat, but I can cut it at an angle across the face this way. I can cut it at an angle this way. To do that, we're going to flip this. This should be pushed down, but I'm going to flip this up. I'm going to pull the little finger trigger underneath, and then I can rotate it. There's a gauge inside here that allows me to see where I'm at. So I'm going to bring it back down to 0. Let it go so it's locked in, and then I'm going to lock it down by pushing down on the handle. The other thing that we can do, and the reason it's called a compound, is that I can loosen the back end up here, and I can rotate the whole blade unit sideways. So we could come down at an angle this way. So we could do compound cuts with this. We've got the trigger right here. It plugs in through a normal plug in the back. We want to leave it unplugged when possible. The other thing to notice is that when I bring it all the way down, my fingers are off the trigger. There's this pin right back here where my index finger is that keeps it in the locked position. When we're finished with the saw, we should lock it into that lower position. It's just a little safer, a little better. We're going to unplug it before we walk away. So I'm going to come up and use the saw. The first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to push it down and pull that pin out to let it go, making sure that I notice if the blade guard is moving smoothly. If it's not safe to use, and I want to let the teacher know. As long as the blade guard is moving smoothly, we're set to go. I can go ahead and plug this in. I'll turn the vacuum system on and have the vacuum system on, and now I'm ready to cut. So I've got it set. I need to do a 90-degree cut, so I'm just going to keep it at the 0-degree mark. I need it at a 0-degree mark as well here, so I get a nice parallel or perpendicular cut. And on my board, I know it's hard to see on this board, but on my board I've already marked where I'm going to cut this. So I want to cut it off here. I want this piece right here to stay. This little tiny bit is my scrap piece. And so what I want to do is make sure that that saw blade is on that side of the cut line. So to get my piece ready, I'm going to bring it up and set it down. I want it to be kind of flat. If it's rocking, that can be kind of dangerous. So we want to make sure it's relatively flat. We want to make sure it's pressed up against the fence. We never want to bring the saw blade down on it if it's not up against the fence or just lying loose, or we don't have a hand on it. It can send the piece flying. It'll try and take it and snap it back. It can spin it off. We risk getting hurt in doing that. So we want to make sure that we press it up against the fence. I'm going to bring my hands, fingers completely off the trigger. I'm going to bring it down, and then I'm going to line up the cut so that the saw blade is just on that side. So the left-hand edge of the saw blade is touching the right-hand side of the line. And now I'm ready to cut. I'm going to press down onto the plate. I'm also going to press back into the fence so I have it nice and secure. I always want my fingers at least 4 inches from the blade. A good line of thumb is to never have your fingers closer than this where it kind of drops down right here. So I'm going to keep my fingers back, well away from the blade. Fingers off the trigger to line up and make sure I'm in the right place. And then I'm ready. In reality, I should be in front here doing this, right? So I get a nice straight view on what I'm doing. I'm going to kind of do it from the side so you can see what's going on. I'm going to pull the trigger up here, because what I want you to notice is when I pull the trigger, the saw blade jumps back. What I do not want to do is have that blade on the wood and start the saw. It's going to grab, it's going to try and buck, and I could risk slipping and getting my fingers caught. So I don't want to do that. So I'm going to bring it down, fingers off the trigger, line it up where I want to cut it, lift it up to the top, then start it. And what I'm going to do is a nice, slow, steady push down through the wood until it's down at the bottom. At that point, I'm going to let go of the trigger. It's going to kind of look like this. I've got my wood being held. I start it, down and through. And then I let the trigger go. The blade stops. Then I lift up. So again, I'm going to line it up. This time we're going to do wood. So the left-hand edge of the blade, the teeth of the blade are on the right-hand side of my line. If I do it the other way, if I have the right-hand side of the teeth on the left-hand side of my line, my piece is going to be cut too short. So I need to be careful. It's better to measure twice, cut once, because we can always take more wood off. It's harder to put wood back on. So I've got it lined up. I've got it ready to go. I've got my safety glasses on. I've got my ear protection in. And now I'm ready to cut. So starting up top, slow and steady down through. Let it go. Blade stops. Up I come. Take my scrap piece, something this small, we're going to toss away. If it's a little bit longer, we'll store it in our scrap bin. But that's the chop saw. It's used the same way. Even if we were doing a compound miter cut and we had it kind of rotated and rotated, it's still the same thing. Line it up, bring the saw blade down, line it up on your line, lift the blade up, start it nice and steady down through. Let it go at the bottom. And that's how we use the chop saw.